went through it very carefully, and there's only one conclusion one could reach having read this book. And this is a scholarly judgment, not ad hominem attack. Mr. Dershowitz has concocted a fraud.
I'm going to need to unpack that one at some point.
It is from one of the best debates of the modern era, and by modern era I mean of like the late 90s to now. That's what I call the modern era. This right here. It's funny because I use the term modern era to literally describe World War II. As you can see, time is simply a construct that I abide by.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was Alan Dershowitz versus Norman Finkelstein, and they were on the topic of it's a very political start to the podcast of Palestine. And the whole thing is,
yes,
yeah,
I do remember this now.
yeah. I think I've shown it to you multiple times.
Yeah, I also know of them to an extent. Yeah.
Like I don't like the political nature of it is something that we don't need to care about. It's just how throughout the whole argument, Norman Finkelstein just kind of dismantles this poor man and leaves him looking like the sleazy scumbag lawyer he is. Because that's exactly who he is. This is Silly Wales. Welcome to the show. I
Welcome.
feel like we've been away for a while, right? But we haven't. Well, we have.
Nope. I don't know, honestly. It's hard to tell anymore. Maybe.
I think it's been 9 days. So what's pretty much happened is, okay, I recorded the episode, I record the episodes, and I'm like, yeah, life is great. And then the minute we finished recording, I was like, hey, it's time to play games with Joe and Kestis. Okay, we're gonna do it. And turns out I completely forgot to actually download the episode. So then when I went to download it in my like fever of procrastination guilt, the episode had already expired on Craig. So yeah, I fucked up. Okay, and the episode was actually pretty good. We discussed random stuff. We were both feeling like shit. We're both talking about how life is bad. And at the end of the episode, we found our first like viewer email, and we were really happy about it. So it ended on a really wholesome note, and I was super like excited to edit it, and then I couldn't find it, and then I was like, well, this summarizes my life entirely.
Really was the worst time that could happen. Because it was such a nice bit.
It was. But yeah, like we got the email and it brightened up our like fairly dismal week. And so shout out to the person who sent the email in. Pretty much the email was just saying that they resonate a lot with what we were saying, and they have a family member who like has ADHD, and it was like really emotionally hitting. And I don't know what the aim of this show actually is, but the aim is that it connects with people. So it's doing that, and I'm really happy about that. So thank you guys for taking part, sending things in, and giving the show good ratings. Like the show like bumped up in the ratings recently, man. Like I think we got 2 more like 5-star things, and I haven't even asked anybody I haven't even told anybody new about the show and about since the show started, really. So
yeah, same.
like we should probably try and do more, but honestly, like I kind of feel bad, you know.
I don't think there's any reason to feel bad, but like I just haven't. I guess I've told everyone who I think. I mean, some people might need some reminding. To be fair, like, isn't if they were interested, they probably forgot. I have a few friends like that, so that's quite possible. But probably I can't think of who I would actually like talk to who I legitimately know, and I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, listen to this, or even like mention it really. But I mean, yeah, I guess we could do some more evangelizing around it if we wanted to.
Yeah, like get people into the cult.
But I just before you go, I did have like a weird moment, like it's not existential, but I had a very weird moment. I think it was today where I was like, where I suddenly realized that people. I think I was thinking about that email actually, and I suddenly realized, oh, people actually do listen to what we're saying. I had like a really strange moment where I was like, someone does actually listen. That's weird. And because I've not had the conversation with them, but they've clearly heard me say something, and it's like that was actually the first time it kind of hit me that that's a thing that we're doing. So hooray, I guess. I don't know. Maybe that's a good thing because now because I'm not feeling that bad about it, so that's good. But it really
Yeah,
was a sudden moment of like, oh
I've
yeah.
had a dawning moment of like when I realized, oh, this show, I want this podcast to be successful, which means I feel like it's going to be successful. And I'm like, so when the show gets successful, so that mentality is all great when you're feeling positive. I'm really feeling positive, but now in my head, the show is going to be successful. So it becoming successful is now the negative. So now I'm thinking to myself, well, when the show becomes successful, there's going to come a time where like the social aspect of it clashes with like, the professional aspect of me. So like, hey, look at me, I'm coaching football and all that stuff, and then the kids would be like, hey, you show called Silly Wells. I'm like, oh, I just start punching kids and like, like just tell no, like, like you know, putting one kid into a rear naked choke while teep kicking the other. Like, this is a reality, really. That could happen. Well, but let's be real here. I'm gonna get my ass whooped by anybody. Like, um,
It's what you
like,
like.
yeah, it's true, it's true. But you want it to be about someone who's good, right? You know,
Oh, true.
uh,
Actually, yeah. You
I
don't
feel
want to
like
be some random person.
I feel like I would, I will beat somebody really reputable in Muay Thai, and everyone will be like, "What has happened here?" And I'll lose to some random guy, like who's never fought before, with a 0-0 record. Like,
Yeah, to someone who could speak French and German, like just
exactly.
it's
Yeah.
over.
You know, like I'll lose to a guy who's like 0-7, like after beating someone who's 10-0. Like, yeah, it's what it is.
I
Consistency
mean,
is not a
what
strength of mine.
what a what a fucking fall from the hype that would be. Like, in that order, obviously. In the other way round, it's an underdog story, and it's great. But
But I forgot to tell people. This is a mental health podcast. We do discuss things that are a little bit sensitive at times. Things like mental illness, mental health conditions, things like neurodivergent. Uh, some may call it disorders, or just call it conditions, or ways of living. This show is for everyone, but it might not be for you, and that is okay. We're not going to hunt you down because we can't. And also, I have a really annoying blister on my ankle and I can barely walk properly, let alone hunt you down because you're not listening to this show. Um, I don't know about Joe, but yeah,
I realized that as soon as I found out that someone did, I mean, I don't know how I'd know this, but when I find out that someone doesn't want to listen to our episodes, I realize I just forget that they exist within an hour. And
yeah.
I need to get the energy up to find them real quick, otherwise I'm never going to remember that that's a thing.
I forget that people who I actually like love and care about exist. So imagine having to put the effort into somebody who doesn't like pay, or it's not in my field of view. Jeez, it's difficult. It's very
Yeah,
difficult.
yeah. So you got no worries.
You don't, you don't. That being said, the Church of Scientology. That's another thing right there. Okay.
We'll see. We'll see.
I haven't. Yeah, I haven't actually edited last week's episode. I've been really bad with being finding time to edit, finding time to like push the show on different platforms. It's just been yeah. I'm gonna go first with the sharing circle. It's just been very difficult the past few weeks. For a variety of different reasons. The saving grace has been things like the dog. Yeah, the dog is alive. It's still alive.
Woo.
Uh, she's an absolute idiot, straight up. Like, I started writing a new poem literally about the fact that me and the dog, um, like, oh, they're the fox. Okay, I acknowledge the fox. I'm gonna try and go after the fox because I'm a dog and I have a mix of like 4 different breeds, and one of them is a border collie, which means you like to chase things. Yeah, yeah, look at that. Cool. Yeah, cool. Okay, the fox is gone. Cool. Yep, I'm not gonna pay any attention to the fox anymore.
Very,
I'm
very
back
similar.
home. I am back home on my bed. Hey, the fox. And just darts towards the door to try and chase a fox from 4 years ago. Like it's just I don't know. And she doesn't bark. She doesn't bark either. She holds everything in. Okay, like you know, she keeps everything under wraps. The most sound she makes is a whimper. Like it's like great, cool. See, bottle things up just like me. Uh, like you don't express yourself. Great. Like or when you do, it's just like a bit too late.
Well, when
Yeah.
I'm coming down this week, like for probably a few hours of that day before I go off to Scotland. I'm going off to Scotland, everyone, very soon. What will I get the chance to see this dog while I'm down? I mean, I can see it
I
after
don't
the
know how long you're
holiday.
down for.
Well, at that time I'll be down all of Sunday, not all of
Most,
Sunday, like most of Sunday.
but when are you leaving? That's the question.
I mean, I think we're going to the station for like 6:37. We'll arrive there in the evening.
Um, I want to say it's possible, but it's very no wait no, because I'm having a away fixture, so then I don't want to be like yeah sure. It depends on whether it's an AM or PM. If it's a PM, then there's a chance I won't be home until like 4:35 ish. So
I
yeah,
mean that's actually possible, maybe, but I
no,
could also
nothing.
just wait until after the holiday because
No.
I'll stay down for a few days.
Yeah, definitely need to meet the dog. It's been very difficult to organize social things with people um, because it's just literally just been recover from little injuries, recover from like weird blisters, recover from illnesses, recover from like things like not being paid properly, um, and then the minute one thing heals, something else happens. So it's been like really stop and start.
Mm.
I need to get back into the gym to resume training. That's going to start hopefully some point this week. Definitely need to get a haircut. Um,
Ooh,
my
same.
goal in life is to get a big beard, and right now it's at its best. Okay, and by its best, I mean I have like 5 strands of hair on my face, so it's not looking good. I look like someone tried to make Wolverine black, but they couldn't get the beard down, so they just put little dots of ballpoint pen on my face.
Have you?
But yeah,
Are you saying you want a beard because it makes it easier for you to have bigger hair? Is that the reason why,
I think
or is
having
it
a beard
just?
is just one of those things because I always think that beards look cool, right? And
Mhm.
like, I get upset. I get viscerally upset when like you or Togo or anybody else like cuts off their beard. I'm like, you should be. I'm living through you, okay? And you're taking it away from me.
But beards
Like
don't look good on everyone, and not everyone's beard it looks that great. Like mine doesn't look that great, and it's
your beard is
annoying.
fine.
It's fine, but it's really annoying more than anything. Like because it
Like,
doesn't look great, so it's just a thing on my face that I forget to get rid of. That's basically how I live with my beard. Like hilariously, I did literally. I have shaved today, so now I'm in preparation for the holiday. I've not just got a beard the entire time. I'm down to about 5 o'clock shadow ish area. So
Like, look at my Instagram. I am Alex Cupid. Okay, you see, I look 12, and like it doesn't help that people who know me and know the show be like, "Wow, I forgot how young you are." I was like, "What? You're 30? You're like there's a 4 year difference between our ages, and you're talking about young? Yeah, but you look young and you are young." I'm like, "But come on, like And then I listen back to bits that I talk about in the show, and I realize I don't sound my age either. Actually, my voice is the only thing that sounds like somewhat like like the age of 26. Everything else is just, you know, he could pass for 15. It's bad.
it's not bad. It's just a thing. Also, everyone has to deal with something of this kind. Well, no, I should say everyone. Some people do. Most people do, rather.
Being black should be enough. Okay.
No, that's like a layer. That's like a layer that just randomly gets put on people. Unfortunately, that's you then have to deal with everything else after that. Like,
I'm coaching football, and I have someone come up to be like, "Oh, where's your coach? I am the coach." like, ah.
I mean, you never know. Listen, when you're in your like mid to late 30s, it might be you might look so like the way that you'll age like fine wine, like to just like pure perfection around a certain time, and you'll have people when you're like 45 being like, "Oh, that's a nice like that's a good looking 30-year-old," and and you'll be pleased to have just as much like well maybe you won't actually I don't know how much attention you want from people, but you'll probably get quite a lot of compliments. I'm guessing because you're looking good now, and it's going to remain that way for a while. I'm guessing. Me, I have no idea what's going to happen.
You're fine. Everyone's fine. All my friends are good looking, okay? You know.
Everyone's fine.
How's your
Yeah.
week been?
Um, you know what? I think it's been okay. I think the big thing more recently has been the realization of how much stuff I need to get done. Um, there's like an element of I need to get done, and then there's also another element of stuff I want to get done. Things like the job and things like finding a place is almost in the category of want to get done. I mean, the job is definitely want to get done because at the moment I don't need to get a new job. It's just I definitely do want to because eventually I'm just gonna fucking put in a notice and quit if I'm not careful. Like I'm just gonna end up being like, yeah, give me 4 weeks notice and I'll just try and find a job in the meantime. Like I've genuinely thought about that a few times. So I know it's gonna happen if I'm not careful. Then when it comes to finding a place, that's something I need to do, but not quite as date sensitive. And then there's a bunch of stuff recently that I've just had to try and get through, and luckily I've got through a little bit of. But it just the amount of stuff really hit when stuff starts hitting me. I can deal with like a low level of amount of stuff most of the time. But then as soon as it reaches like even slightly above a little bit, I will take the chunk and I will focus on a particular individual part, not do anything about it, and that chunk just increases as more things are added. So I've kind of gotten to a point now where like today, where I was like, oh shit, I'm about to go on holiday. While I'm on holiday, I'm not going to have time to do any of these things. I'm not going to be able to look for a job. I'm not going to be able to. Oh, I could do, but it's going to be much more annoying and difficult. I might not even have Wi-Fi in a lot of the places I'm going to. Um, I'm not going to be able to sort out my registration vote after having moved. I'm not going to be able to like. I'm not going to be able to. What was the other fucking thing I was doing today? I honestly can't even remember. But there was some other thing I was doing as well. Ordering a Mother's Day gift, I literally just did today because like, it's just a number of things. And then I'm thinking about Tunisia, the holiday there, because I'm the person who's organizing it and I'm having to do all of the stuff for it, tickets and EasyJet crap and all of that. So I'm like, okay, I need to do a bunch of stuff and I haven't done any of it. And just trying to fit all of that into this like week, which I if it's not clear, we both struggle with organization. I particularly struggle with organization. I think even far more than, no, not far more. I struggle with it more than you do, I think, just because I will literally, in those moments where I'm like, oh, I've got so many things to do, I will like you procrastinate, but I will procrastinate to the point that I can't do any of those things. Like it's not possible. And from the sounds of it, you do more than I do on a regularity of a week. Like I pretty much only have the commitment of work, and that's it. You also have that, but you also have a bunch of other things you do. I don't get any shit done most of the time. So it's been a struggle, but I am currently in it right now. I'm feeling good, and I have felt good probably for the past like day or two, especially with getting all of this holiday shit in order because I had to swap shifts and stuff. Now I'm just ranting, I realize, and venting. What I mean to say is that all of the things that I've been trying to get sorted, which has been a bit frustrating at times, has now been sorted in the absolute right now that needs to be sorted. There are some things that can take a week or two before it gets done. So at least that level of stuff is, going to be sorted. Oh man. I really need to find a
That's how
way.
bad we are with organizing. It's the thing that we both like skip over ourselves, right? We don't like we trip over our own dicks quite a lot with this. Like, you know,
I mean, mine is so fundamentally tied to the fact that I have no time because I'm addicted to something and I can't stop using it. Like it's just I literally find like I'll literally be in moments where I'm like I've got to stop doing this and I can't get my brain to change like my brain to do anything else, and it's awful when I realize like okay, it's 2 o'clock, let me try and get something done. I want to get something done. Oh, I'm recording with Alex at 7, and then it reaches 8 o'clock and then we start recording. You know what I mean? Like that kind of level, and nothing has happened between those two moments. And and I'm like, oh, I've got a lot of stuff I've got to do today. Okay, let me wake up early, and then I wake up early and do nothing until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Like it's such an annoyance. Like I genuinely have to almost bore myself with my addiction before I can then get out of it. It's one of the issues. But I am actually planning to discuss and organize a GP appointment to kind of with a bunch of the different things to be referred to certain things or deal with a bunch of stuff that I've been dealing with and actually try to get some more serious support in this area. Hopefully I can, because I can't like directly say I'm addicted to YouTube because no one actually gives you any help with that. Like I've said it in the past before and it hasn't really meant anything. So
Yeah.
so I have to do things like talk about, oh, I can't sleep properly, or talk about stuff with sleep and things like that. Ask maybe for a referral about ADHD and have that like looked into, and just basically have a bunch of stuff where I can then like talk about my behaviors through that and explain stuff, and then have people help me in the outskirts of it to try and finally actually get to the issue, or the issue which obviously has its sources of material for it. But I need to talk about all of the other things, because if I talk about the actual thing that's causing me issue directly, then no one is gonna. I'm not gonna get much help with it. I don't think, at least, as certainly what I've not had now. Do talk to GPs and doctors about things if you're ever worried about them. Like, do it for sure. But there are occasions where I think certain things just don't translate as well. So you might be everyone gets frustrated sometimes with these things, but do absolutely go to we got in the UK, we have the NHS. Go to the NHS. Like it's free for you. We're all paying for it together. That's the point. So let's use it. just a little excerpt there at the end, just to make sure I'm not sounding like I'm against NHS or anything like that. My mum works for it. I'm incredibly proud of it. It's one of the best things about this country that we have, of our country. It's one of the best things we have. So let's just say that now.
Well, with the NHS, like what you gain in freeness, you lose in general effectiveness, because it's been cut ridiculously to the point in which people like your mother, who should be paid a lot more, aren't being paid a lot more, to the point which they have to strike to get what they want. But
Yeah,
at
to be
its core,
clear,
it
the
works.
NHS is good. The NHS conceptually is brilliant, and the people who work in the NHS, and I'll give like a good 80% plus, are incredible people doing incredible work and are deserving of an incredible amount of respect. Completely. What the less than 20% are certain people who are maybe just a bit who aren't like, who are still doing very like really good stuff, but are obviously like not necessarily the greatest people in the world. And then you have people who are kind of in positions basically to just manage the government's cutbacks on everything that happens with it. So it's even though obviously you need people in those positions, it's the fact that their job is essentially to just make things difficult for literally everyone working in the NHS, and because that's what they're told. Unfortunately, they're not in the best position of help. Obviously, that doesn't mean that that's what they want to be doing, but it's just that's how it is. Unfortunately, it by far the amount of cutbacks have been insane. You look at the numbers over the last 20, 25 years, like over my lifetime, it's been insane.
Yeah.
So the reason why people are falling out of favor of it, or the reason why people look more towards, quite, for good reason as well, like towards private on occasion, is specifically because there is just not enough given to what has been probably one of the most important things since World War II for the UK, like in term for its culture and its people across the board, without a doubt, in my opinion. So it's it's really hard because obviously it is dealing with shit, but man, it should it not be?
This is the second time you have spoken passionately about the NHS. The first time was about blood, and now here
um,
we are.
yeah. I mean, I have a bias of people around me who work in it, much in the way that I have a bias towards education system and how it could be better. Because of because of a bunch of other people I know who were teachers and the problems they have had with teaching and so on, and the limitations and the amount to which the curriculum is being kind of fucked over constantly, and stipulations really preventing like actual proper education help happening. Obviously, these are things that are going to make us passionate and talk about this a lot. But yeah, no, I get you. It's just I got to talk about it sometimes.
Um,
Sorry,
but
I felt seen and hurt, but I know you weren't meaning to be.
I know. I was just going to point out that you're paid for by the government shills, and you are now a shill for the NHS. I see how it is, Joe. I see how it is. This
For the
coming,
people doing great work in the NHS, yes, I'm a shill for them.
yeah. I do. I've been exposed to a lot of like right wing content recently, which has just made me laugh. But then it also gets me quite unnerved because it's pretty much it all started because I'm researching. I'm doing the bare minimum research for this. We're gonna do a City West presents on ADHD and misinformation. Highlighting specifically on Jordan Doctor. She is still a doctor, Jordan Peterson, and this man. We got like just decrypting this information surrounding him. So of course I watch YouTube videos. Yeah, yeah. Oh, look at that! Look who started. Um, do I want to edit that? No, no, we're not going to edit it. Pretty much, it's like the idea of misinformation in with ADHD and like the myths surrounding it and things like that. It doesn't require that much scientific knowledge because a lot of it is just me repeating other people's scientific knowledge and then tacking on the effects of this misinformation on society as a whole. So a lot of it is very opinion based with the factual information coming from actual factual sources. Um, the
Yeah,
issue I've been having has been clicking videos by Dr. Jordan Peterson on my YouTube account and then being recommended straight afterwards more by Dr. Jordan Peterson, as if he's
yep.
trying to tell me, see, look, you're down the right road. I'm like, no, I'm not. And because he just says dumb shit now. He doesn't actually offer anything of worth to anything anymore. And I hate to say this about another human being, but he is pretty much useless. And like everything he said for the past maybe 3 or 4 years has kind of just been redundant nonsense. And like he is now an old man addicted to a cell phone. Like, do you know how you say you're addicted to YouTube and it's a very valid
Hmm.
thing, right?
Yeah.
He is addicted to social media like Twitter, that is like nowhere near as destructive like as he thinks it is. I think he thinks he's saving the world. It is he is literally destructive to himself, other people. Like, imagine if your addiction to YouTube like caused you to randomly just punch people in the face. Like, that is what Jordan Peterson's addiction to Twitter is. Like, and the things he says, it's gotten to the point in which people can literally make up tweets that he says, and they can sound as outlandish as possible, but you don't know if it's real or not. And 9 times out of 10, he's actually tweeted those things. Like, it's just ridiculously weird. And he has his people who love him, and like any of these like red pill hyper masculinity guys, they have their really weird like cult followers who can never seem to disagree with anything he says, despite it being proven to be fraudulent. Um, so then they just bite into every word. I'm just thinking, Jesus, when we do the Sealy World Present episode, I'm gonna have to say this all again. But but now I have to now watch random videos to get rid of his recommended videos.
Yeah, the YouTube pipeline is bad. I mean, this was a thing that early on in YouTube we not early on in YouTube, sorry, but God, when would this have been? Like 10 years ago. This became a much bigger thing once this started happening. All of the kind of political discussion. Actually, discussion's really not correct, really, because most of it was not discussion. It was lectures given by different videos by different content creators. And that's what it was, content. Don't like, first and foremost, it's content as well. It's a form of entertainment just as much as it's trying to be political, regardless of what it was. The the kind of understanding of how of YouTube's of essentially of the algorithm, how the algorithm had like reached this point where if you went down one path, it will only show you things in that path, and it will lead you to more extreme missed views in that path, right? So, and I mean, yeah, I could go into this way more. I don't want to actually because this is probably worth talking about more on the other video. But the main point is that it's that yeah, like you active like when I stopped essentially engaging with political YouTube, the effect it had was that I now essentially have never seen a Jordan Peterson video come up on my like on my recommended or anything like that now because I'm no longer in that space anymore. and whenever I talk to you and I hear you talking about Jordan Peterson, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot he existed now suddenly. Like there was a period of time where I was like,
Yeah,
I completely forgot that he was a person, because I was like, I'm not seeing him on my thing anymore. And in a way, I after he had like, medical issues of his own, I kind of thought that maybe he'd kind of taken a rest and recovered, and maybe dealt with his life personally. And I was like, probably, even though I disagree with him on almost everything that he ever says, good for him. At least he's not, at least he's not spouting bad information anymore. Fuck it. And then, hopefully he lives a good life on his own, even though I don't like him very much. In from a, certainly from that perspective anyway. And yeah, no, he's still going. I'm just not seeing him, which is just which I think is interesting, because it's one of the things about the share of information of the internet that we do exist in. That as much as you can talk about how free it is of information and how things get everywhere and so on. The reality is that that's true to an extent, but really, the information isn't something that you can process. You can't process all information from the internet. Not that you would want to, because the vast majority of the stuff on the internet is either crap, actively problematic, or essentially like, or sensationalist, right? And probably a mixture of all three of those things. So that's what most of it is, and also illegal in many cases. There's a lot of illegal shit on the internet that you don't want to interact with. But the reality, but the point is that even if you're an avid YouTube user like I am, you could not, like, you haven't seen the YouTube videos I've been watching. I've been watching a bunch of stuff about some garbage that makes no difference to the world, but it's not your garbage that doesn't make that doesn't help or make any use for the world. It's like there's, so you create these spaces where now you have these isolated groups, essentially in a vast ocean of information. That basically means that we are actually weirdly in this space where you could be on the internet all the time and not hear about something that has like billions of billions of views on YouTube, for example, or some person who's become really big and famous or whatever. It's a bit like talking about even talking about like music artists, for example. I don't know half of the people who are on like the top 10 on Spotify or whatever. In fact, I think it's
me
more than
either.
half that I've never even heard of before. And that's not just because I'm getting older and I'm not listening to music as much, or I'm not listening to like new music. Because in reality, I listen to new songs sometimes. I really like it. It's just it's just that the information's not getting to me. I'm not receiving it. I have to actually be like, okay, I'm going to go into learning about who's the top of music or whatever, which ultimately, if you think about it, is completely is not helpful in any way for almost anyone. Like hearing new music, sure, that might be good for you on a personal level, but like knowing like who the biggest people are, or knowing like vast amounts about this sort of thing is useless to almost everyone. Like it's not worth anything. So it's not that crazy. Like there are other things in the world that are more important. I mean, there's things I haven't even looked at about the Ukraine conflict that I really fucking should, right? Like like that's clearly something that I should be paying more attention to, and I'm not. There's loads of stuff about about politics in this country that I'm not paying attention to as much, which I definitely should be, considering the
Yeah,
fucking elections coming up. Like it's
yeah,
it,
but
it, but it's one of those things where it's like, okay, let me go down. If I go down a path, you almost don't even see the rest of it, which in itself is okay, but it means that there's insidious elements like the stuff that you're seeing that I'm not, which I'm not even aware of is happening, and I'm not even aware of is like a phantom in society. I mean, the number of people who have no idea about the red pill movement for a very, very long period of time. I think now it's become more mainstream knowledge, but like previously, like loads of people had no idea that was a thing going on, and that it was
yeah,
actually quite
yeah.
big.
It's wild. It really is, because the thing is, with all of this stuff, it's like the things that you watch on YouTube. I've seen like your subscriber like box effectively, and it's very like similar content. Things around D&D, things around like fighting games like Street Fighter and all that stuff, and like other videos in that genre or around that genre. and like they spread out further. My sub box is actually weird because there's people I'm subscribed to that I actually dislike, but I find their videos fairly entertaining. For example, I've been subscribed to George Galloway for the better part of 7 months.
Oh
I don't
yes.
like George Galloway. I don't like him at all. I think he's a twat. But a clock is right like twice a day, whatever. And sometimes he'll just drop. Like, here's the thing: he's running for Rochdale to be the MP for Rochdale, and his whole like platform is to pretty much get rid of Keir Starmer. And it's shameful. It's bad. It's not helpful. But there's always a weird like grift about it all as well, and it's very. It reminds me a lot of everything that's kind of wrong with politics at the moment, because a lot of what he says is just misinformation, and the people who he has on his show contradict everything he says he quote unquote believes in. Like he has this guy called Scott Ritter on his show. This guy is a convicted pedophile, straight
Hmm.
up.
Yeah.
Straight up, legitimately convicted pedophile. Got caught twice in different sting operations by the FBI. And he says like it's a sting. No, 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 no. Like this isn't like a they planted information on him. He got caught. This is he literally like willingly did all these bad things. And was found like child pornography and all that stuff. Like he's a bad human being. Black, like it baffles me how like I'll read the comments and no one mentions the pedophile Scott Ritter who's on his show because people haven't been exposed to the information. And like you look at how dangerous that is in itself. It's like, oh, but you're subscribed to me. I'm subscribed to him because one, he is absolutely hilarious. But two, I find it good to know what the fringe political side of this country thinks because there'll come a time where someone you care about is influenced by the fringe political side of things. And you won't be able to argue when they say things like, well, it's all ethnic minorities that commit crime. The amount of people who stumble with that question is alarming.
Mm.
Like, the clear answer to that is literally impossible. That we're
Yes.
literally ethnic minorities. The key word is minority, literally impossible. But people stumble. So it's good to know what the fringe side of things is talking about. So similar to why like I will dip in and I'll like watch what a right wing conspiracy theorist is saying in America. Why? Because people over here believe it. Like the amount of times I've heard people like say blatant misinformation about the Russia-Ukraine conflict and things like that, saying, "Oh yeah,
Yeah.
like Putin's not this," it's right there for you to see, but you're not exposed to it, so you're not seeing it. And a lot of
Sorry, just to that point, by the way, like within that specific example at the beginning, I remember there were a bunch of people just to show that this is not even necessarily like just a right wing thing. There was like some people who randomly on the left were like being like really pro Russia about the whole thing, and I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, because of some, I don't know, some bullshit. Firstly, some weird understand. I think it was to do with like the some oh god, it was they were latching onto like the some of the bullshit talking points around like fascists in Ukraine or something like that, and then were deciding for
yeah,
some reason that that was that meant that the entire country could be declared war on for some reason, and just some really weird angles, and even in certain cases it was like you understand, like even if you're left wing, like you know that Russia is not left wing in any way. Like, are you still holding on to the bullshit that Russia is like a communist country? Like, what's going on?
yeah.
So
Oh
it
my
was
god, yeah,
really confusing, and that's what I wanted to add. Like I think the problem I have. Sorry, actually, I think the problem I have isn't learning about this sort of stuff. I think learning about this sort of stuff is good, although I think it should be, it's something that needs to happen in a more kind of broad way, because not the dramatic sense, but the in a broad sense, where like as in probably most people should be aware of it, right? It should be something that kind of we're aware of in the country, because a lot of this stuff happens not in eyes not in eye line or earshot of you. You don't necessarily know it's happening. It's probably good to know where this stuff is coming from and know what's, and the I mean the amount of stuff that older people on Facebook, for example, are being fed and believe. I mean, the number of stories I've heard of people's parents like coming up with some bullshit that they learned on Facebook that is entirely wrong is crazy. Like, and that's not something that I've got, because my parents are quite are not really those kind of people who would be convinced like that in that way. But like, there are loads of people that have been experiencing that, and it's like, you're literally talking about conspiracy theories here and things like that. And the biggest issue isn't that it's the biggest issue is not learning about it. The biggest issue is that it is fringe, that it is off to the side, that we are not experiencing it in earshot, that it's not something that is active, that is being engaged with at a kind of level beyond that. The fact that it's happening outside of the scenes, right? Because the reality is because of the internet, it's not, because previously when that stuff happened, yeah, it could be relatively big, but generally they never were that big. If you look at any demonstrations in the UK, the Battle of Cable Street, which is a huge demonstration between the God, what was it? Was it the BNF? Or I can't remember what it was, but it was the fascist movement in Britain, like in the 1940s or whatever, like basically World War II period. And or this might have even been later than that, but either way, it was fascist. It was fascist. Anti-Semites, who made an attack. Like, they tended to be minorities. They tended to be smaller. This was a particularly big movement, but they were much smaller than the counter movement that came, and then obviously an actual fight ended up taking place on Cable Street. You can go there, and there's a mural that shows it, between like those that were like saying, no, you can't move through this predominantly Jewish area, like with all of this crap that you're saying, and potentially worse, because they were going around, killing people, beating people up and stuff. That the counter movement was much bigger, and that's quite a common occurrence. Obviously, that if you're having these meetings in secret, for example, they tend to be smaller groups, right? That's quite normal. The difference is on the internet, you don't have to have a secret meeting isn't that difficult when when the information is so easily available and consistent and eternal. Like, I don't have to come up to a certain point. I don't have to go to a certain building at a certain time, and give and maybe even have like some connection, or even have like maybe a passcode so I can get in. All right, and so they know I'm not someone who's like spying on them. It has to be like, all I have to do is go to a forum, and I'm like, oh, okay, here's everything. Here's literally everything that I could possibly know about all of this stuff, whether it's Reddit or Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or anything like that. All of this is available. So you just have these you have these quote unquote sort of fringe movements, which aren't actually fringe. They're quite large. They're just still, but they're acting and remaining in a fringe state because of the nature of the internet being what it is. And there isn't much to prevent that, or even attempt to kind of talk about it even. And also on top of that, sorry, I realize I've cut you off and then went way too long, but I've got myself going now. Within this, I think the biggest thing is that our politics, because they're now happening online and happening in these spaces, are not happening in actual company very much. And you don't actually have conversations with people, or meet up with people, or even engage in politics in the way that we did 100 years ago, which is to be expected, by the way. It's clearly not going to be the same. I'm not complaining, oh, we should ban the internet, but my point is that the way politics is being consumed and discussed is now in a state where, unless you're going to the same places that they're all going to, these fringe groups are, which they might not want, which they can even maybe they can even kick you out of it, maybe they can do other things, maybe they just move on. But either way, like there's no way in which those groups don't essentially have the absolute ability to have their own place and make do with it, which, again, freedom of speech and stuff, you can talk about how that might be important and how great the internet is for that, no doubt. But the reality is, of what that in reality means, is we are now dealing with a situation where really extreme ideas, and again, I'm not saying extreme as in like it has to go into like terrorists or something like that. I just mean extreme ideas, or ideas that have already been shown to be false, but are like forming cohesion within a group of that is isolated in some way. And the fact that that's not being discussed openly at all means that there is and sometimes when it is discussed openly, to be fair, in the mainstream, it's not discussed very well. So therefore, it's actually ends up being a negative thing to discuss it. So don't get me wrong. But the fact
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not, if I meet someone on the street, I don't know how much they believe in some of the absolute bullshit that's online. The people who come into my shop, or the people I work with, even, you know, I could talk to them about certain things and they will maybe give me a hint of it, but I'm very unlikely to end up in the situation where I'm actually like knowing the levels of which they believe of certain things or not. So there is a worry there for sure that
And
I
for me,
have.
it's always like, one of the things I always look for, if someone says something like, "Oh, you can't say anything nowadays," or something like that, and I realize that's a really, really, really poor trigger for knowing what somebody thinks politically, because, like, in a way, it's okay to be disgruntled with the idea that what you say is being heavily looked at, because like social media and like the news will tell you that the things you're saying is constantly being looked at. So that isn't a good trigger. But whenever I hear someone say something like, "Oh, like, everyone's being cancelled," or "Oh, like, everyone's too sensitive," that's like for me a telltale sign that, oh, this person probably has questionable views on life. Um, and it's like one of them like red flags and all that stuff. But the flip side of it also goes if I hear somebody say something along the lines of like, "Oh, we can't allow this person to have a platform." That
Mhm.
also gives you the exact same feeling of, "Oof, this person probably has some questionable views about life." Like, because I'm very much a middle of the road human being. Like a lot of people say, "Hey, like Trump shouldn't be allowed to be um like having the election," or stuff, or stuff. Well, my viewpoint of it will always be, until he's found guilty, whatever it is he's doing, then you kind of have to let him do his thing. We shouldn't be focused on shutting him up. We should be focused on getting him into prison, like, which is where he
Right.
conveniently belongs. But until that happens, he's allowed to run for president, because that's what this country is built upon. This country being the United States. Similar with with over here, we just had like we have blatant extremist views in this country when it comes to race. The
Mhm.
Conservative Party is a far right government, and it's not even like up for debate. It point blank is. Um, there, I can't remember what his role is. What was it? The chief whip? I don't know. Lee Anderson made a really horrific Islamophobic comment saying that London is run by Islamists, purely because Mayor Sadiq Khan is, well, you know, is of Middle Eastern descent.
Mhm.
uh, these comments like that, and him saying that, you should see the reaction to it. It's like, well, he's only saying the truth. Like
Yeah.
every everyone's reaction to it has been, we need to get him to say sorry, or it's people saying he's only saying the truth. So he's been removed from his role, but he hasn't apologized yet. Not as a country even said, well, not as a government said that what he said is abhorrent. They've pretty much said, well, he didn't mean it that way, and they've dodged it. They've dodged it, and they've lost sight of how detrimental it is. And in my viewpoint, right here, right now, I don't want him to be sacked because he says something bad. I want him to be sacked because he is somebody bad. Like, I want him to be sacked because his incompetency in the role has been
Yes.
shown, not
Yeah.
purely because of the dumb things he says. The dumb things he says is simply one of the many qualifying things that can lead to him being sacked. But for you guys to finally turn around and go, "Hey, look, he said something bad, he should be sacked." Look at his whole history in that role. He's been terrible. Like, like this isn't the first bad thing he said. Um, like, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of times where there's a political nuance that there's a nuance that doesn't really exist, and a lot of the time we react to things rather than looking at someone's career and going, "Hey, they're shit at what they do."
Yeah.
Like, that's
To
what we need to
to
get rid of them.
to bring this around, by the way, to like mental health specifically, I think this is one of those things that actually caused me to go really low for a long. I mean, it still does. I think there's an extent of ignorance that I've had over the last a few years that has helped me to an extent not deal with this as much, which is not a good thing because I want to be informed. And I actually have come to realize that being informed helps me feel better when things are shit, because if things are shit but you don't understand why, it you just feel bad, but you don't have any kind of like outlet or way in which you can tackle it, right? Like if I got involved more politically with certain things, then I could help towards causes that I think are important, right? And help in ways that I think are useful, and therefore I will be actively engaging with the system that I am having an issue with. The the problem that I the problems I had though was essentially a form of despair, like a form of political apathy and despair that occurred because I literally felt that everything was going to ruin and there's no way to stop it, essentially. And I think that's like maybe something that has been experienced by a lot of people, because the number of people, when you talk about these things, when you talk about, even when you mention the word politics, which in itself, politics is literally everything. Like the concept of politics is very abstract, because what it's really saying is how everything is being done, how everything is being run, how everyone is thinking about things. It's so broad that when you have an opinion about literally anything in society, that's a political statement. There's very few, like it doesn't have to be ideologically like specific, and it doesn't have to be that means that, oh, I'm going to label you as this or whatever, or that oh, you must be someone who votes, or that you must then vote for someone. But everyone has opinions about things, and they're all political because they're all about society at large. The problem, people who I meet, where when politics comes up as a topic, or even just the word politics, people to go, oh, I hate politics, or they say, which that part I understand, but it's being used in a way that is problematic, right? Or they'll even say something like, I you know I like to stay out of politics, for example, which is something you are totally able to do. You are allowed to do that, but the problem is that what that says to me is there are lots and lots and lots of people who are becoming completely disenfranchised, to the point where even mentioning something as political immediately causes people to put walls up, and immediately means that you can't actually engage in anything. And that was incredibly saddening for me. And it also, I mean, at the time also, I hadn't fully formed my own ideas about these things, and I was on political YouTube trying to keep up with everything and trying to understand what's going on, being pulled in by things that I realized later I shouldn't have been, or or things that I initially had like a negative reaction towards that I then realized afterwards maybe had some points to it. It's exhausting. And I mean, not only just because you're young and you're having to like form all of this, because in reality it's going to be true that as long as you are trying to remain that you're actually trying to understand everything that's going on properly, it's going to continue to be exhausting unless you crystallize everything and you just start to form an opinion that you never lose, which a lot of people do. And basically, it's like the people. It's for us, it would be oh, our grandparents only ever vote for whoever their parents voted for, kind of thing, and they just never vote for anyone else. They don't really change how they view anything. All of that, that's not a good thing at all, because it just creates a stagnation politically of things, and it means that basically whatever happens, whatever's going on in politics, has no impact on how the next like election will go, or how policy might end up going. Like it's sad, because I've been on loads of demonstrations in my life, and there is something fascinatingly despairing at times when you're doing it, because sometimes it feels great, like knowing like, hey, look, like we all care about this thing, and we're here. And then there's this like element of you do all of this, and then you realize nothing happens and nothing changes. And I mean, the number of times I've spoken to someone and said like, oh, why don't you go on like, you agree with me or whatever, like, do you want to come on this demonstration, or should you go on this demonstration? And someone has said like, oh, but it doesn't make a difference. And much in the way that when people say, oh, it doesn't make a difference who I vote for, the country's still going to ruin all of that stuff, and it won't matter, which is a doomsayery perspective to have of everything, and is really bad. Because at that point I feel like we're essentially reaching political lethargy, where no one is going to be like essentially interested in. Obviously loads of people are, but I'm saying like the more that group grows, the greater the greater that thing, like bills that have been put through in the last 2 years around like free speech and around like and so on, have cut down on it and things like that, and the consistent economic like decisions being made are just going to never really be like answered. Oh, sorry, they're not going to be responded to, I think is the point, right? Because without any any sort of response, there really is no reason why, like, whatever they come up with in Parliament as being the thing that's going to happen, without any sort of consequence to push back, there really is nothing to, like, make them change their mind, you know. So
Yeah, like
it's incredibly saddening, and I understand why people don't get
yeah,
involved, because it's fucking exhausting. Like, it really
it
is.
is. Like it's the reason why like I for like strip back my own political. It's the reason why I'm very much when it comes to politics. Like it's very, very obvious, man. Like there's a mental health podcast. We're probably going to be left wing people, okay? Like we are. We naturally are. So we are. Um, but I very much I'm in a position where because of mental health, I'm very open to discuss politics with anyone, as long as they're not extreme in their views. I'm happy to do that because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter who you vote for. If you're struggling, you're struggling, you know? Um, and anyone can struggle. Like, there's a lot of people who I know who say things like as a way to make it better. They'll be like, "Oh, I'm politically like very progressive, but I'm like fiscally conservative." You're conservative. That's okay, you know? Like
Mm,
it's okay, you know? Like I like Rory Stewart. like
yeah.
I think he's great. But guess what? Um, I'm not going to vote for him, but I like him. But you know, it's okay to tell me you're conservative. I'm not going to hate you for it. I'm definitely not going to demonize you for it. I hate you for the things. I'll hate you for the things that you do and things that you say. The things that you hate, the things that you do and say are filled with that like hatred and filled with like violent venom towards who I am because of what I look like or what I present as, then yeah, I'm probably gonna hit you with some hatred back, you know. But if you are like a genuinely nice human being, and I use the word nice because I hate the word nice, but if you are presenting as a nice human being, I'm not gonna hate you. I'm not gonna give you a sort of disdain. I'm not gonna throw anything at you. I'm just gonna be fairly just open, you know, and have a good time. Um,
Yeah,
I
actually,
think
this. No, no, sorry, I don't want to. I'm not gonna interrupt you again. Go, please.
no, like I just think there's a lot of when it comes to politics, there's a lot of hiding behind what you vote as, and I've seen it all the time. Like dating is a simple one, like like oh, um, I hate the Tories. Cool. What else is there about you? Because lots of people hate them. like tell me something new. Um, that's like your thing, or there's people who just their whole lives is based around a political ideology. I'm like, but what about you? Like that's tiring. What about you? Like what's going on with you exactly? What about you, the person? Not your political affiliation. What about you as a human being? Like I want to get to know what actually gets you up in the morning that isn't to do with politics, because there's more to your life than this. There has to be.
Yeah, and so when I talking about the NHS and donating blood, when I got on the train to donate blood, I was obviously at the train. I was at the station for a bit, and while I was there, I heard that there were three students like not far from me, and they were talking relatively loudly, so I just kind of like overheard what they were saying, even though I was like listening to a podcast as well or something. Like I could hear them, and there was this one girl who I realized was incredibly ignorant about quite a lot of things. She was even uh, literally, I've never in public had someone so loudly talking about like how about the I don't think that we went to the moon. Like I've never had that actually happen before. That was like a really interesting moment for me where I was like, huh, okay. And obviously like it we did go to the moon. You know, there's no question about that. Like in reality, it's a complete conspiracy theory and it's wrong. Um, and but I wasn't like going to go over to her and start like shouting at her or anything like that. And I wasn't even going to I wasn't even going to input. Like there's a certain part of me that was genuinely like, well, I'm not going to say anything. But there was a part of me in my head thinking, is there a point at which I say something, even if it's just like casually and politely, like, hey, why do you think that? By the way, like I could have done that. I could have. I didn't know how to do it in a way that would be like polite or with or appropriate, I guess, because at the end of the day it's a fucking we're waiting for a train. It's like at what point does this like
Yeah.
you know, and they were on my platform, by the way. They weren't on the opposite platform, and I'd have to talk across the platform. Like, it wasn't like that. It wasn't having
Hey,
to talk
hey,
across the tracks.
you on the other no, not platform two, three. Yeah, you dumb cunt. Platform three. Yeah, we did land on the moon. There's literally pictures. Like no, it's not like you could literally get the telescope where you could see the footprints because they were there for quite a while. You know, you dumb cunt. Hey,
Yeah.
you.
um, you can see you can actually see the you can see you can see the flag. You can't actually. I don't think you can see the footprints anymore. I think some of them may have been gone, or at least most of them are gone, or something like that. But either way, because there is still an atmosphere, it's just really, 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 really low. Because gravity. But there were other things that she was saying as well that were like extremely that showed me more so that she was just ignorant. It wasn't a case of there was no maliciousness involved. She just clearly didn't understand things that I understand, like are fundamental aspects. Like I can't remember if she started talking about evolution, but as someone who studied
Mhm.
biology, I'm and has knows quite a lot about evolution, and in particular the way in which people misunderstand evolution, because I used to think that for a short period of time, and then I had like a moment of understanding, like a epiphany about it that made me realize, okay, no, that's actually what evolution is. Like, and you know, and so on. And there were other things she said anyway, where I was like, okay, this is someone who clearly just doesn't understand like a significant amount of things. But they were also talking about, for example, like a bunch of other things about their lives and about their social lives, about their sex lives even. And I was like, these are real people. Like, I mean, maybe they are maybe in a social setting these people are kind of weird because why am I hearing this? But like obviously that's them. Whatever. I'm not bothered by it, so I'm not gonna complain about it. And I realize these are true normal people, and in circumstances maybe like if I went out and met them and for some reason we started talking, then maybe this conversation could happen, but this isn't really the right time, or it didn't feel that way. The
That conversation can never happen.
it's difficult, and also like and also I don't know if it's ever I don't know if it's something that we want to kind of like push, really, like as a general rule. I don't know if it's something that we want to
I have a
like.
joke of like it's a joke I say quite a lot. Sorry to cut you off. Um, but I say a lot that I don't believe that giraffes exist, and I say it quite convincingly. I say giraffes don't exist, and people will like immediately go, "What? What?" I'm like, they're too big. I like that's literally it. Um, they're too big, and
They are
I
too big.
you know they're too big to live. Like so they don't exist. And I remember saying that at work, and then we end up going to London Zoo, and they'd be like, "Look, it's giraffes. They don't exist." And I was like, "Are you joking with me, or did you actually?" And they fully thought I thought that giraffes don't exist. I'm like, "Why didn't
This
you
is
check?"
why you went to the zoo, just
Like,
to show you.
like, like this whole thing was just like as a giraffe. I'm like, wait, what? And it turned out that she herself doesn't believe in like that COVID was real. I'm like, so you thought that I was an idiot while also being an idiot.
By the way, I absolutely would have said, no, that's an animatronic. That's what I would have said.
But there's only so much I can push, like, because like if someone's that dumb, okay, and like, it's the thing. Her reasoning for it. If your reasoning for it is good, that you don't believe it's real, then I'm not even gonna bother questioning you. You believe your thing. But her reasoning for it was this: it's population control. That's all he wanted. COVID was a way to control the population. Need to get rid of people. I'm like,
Right, I've heard this.
that's
Yeah,
a shit way of getting rid of people. They didn't kill enough. like like you want to cull the population, and that's your that's like, come on, man. The Spanish plague was right there. Like, come on. Like
yeah,
if you this is like your whole hypothesis they wanted to get rid of people. Those people have been reborn again. Like those numbers have risen. Like there's more people now. Like that's not culling like come on. If you're gonna be a conspiracy theorist, at least be a good one, okay? like show some fucking respect to David Icke and Alex Jones, okay? If you're gonna
oh,
be a conspiracy theorist, be a good one. Don't be like, oh, it's COVID's here to cull the population. No, come on. That's lame. That's lame. It literally That literally makes no sense. Like, if you're gonna hit me with a conspiracy theory, make it a good one. Make it one that, after I smoke a bit of weed, I can actually get down with it. But
You could
come on,
believe, yeah.
you know, come on,
I
man.
I was there. I was thinking about this as well. Like, oh God, have I lost it? Oh no. um, God, it was to do with literally what you just said. But oh yeah, there's also this weird thing. This comes up a lot, like the culling population thing. Of basically, there's this myth around overpopulation, which still exists, which I think people misunderstand the concept and realize it's quite an outdated concept. The idea of overpopulation, like there are issues that we're dealing with in certain cases due to there being lots of people there, but that's not like an overpopulation issue. And more to the point, the overpopulation issue is based, or the notion of it is based on the idea of resources being used up as we are used in the way that we're using them and the problems thereof. It's basically just there are problems that we've always been there are issues we've always been creating, and now that there are more people, those issues are just more and more exemplified. It's not an overpopulation issue. It's the old ways are bad, and this is why. It's like it's like if I told you, like, oh, if you keep oh God, I can't think of an example, but unfortunately, I'm not witty enough. But if you could think of an example of something, you at home can figure it out, where you're like, where it's something that like gets the job done at like at a small point. Actually, I could go into like talking about guns for this potentially, but I'm not going to, just because we're reaching the end, I imagine, and we've already said so much. Of like this in theory works when you have like 20 people, and now imagine that every time you times that population by 10, it gets 2 times worse. Like the negative effects get 2 times worse, and you just keep going with that, except what you initially thought was 2 times worse, now it gets to 3 times, then it gets to 4 times, and it's just multiplying. And eventually, once you reach that higher number, oh, by the way, that idea that we initially had that seemed good at the time really isn't working anymore. And somehow this is a surprise to people. And the reason must be because we've got too many people. And it's like, okay, so what's your answer then? Like, I mean, also, what is the answer for so many people? I don't know. Like, are we, and it's because it's either people saying they're trying to cull population and we don't want any of that, but these overpopulation is definite. Either overpopulation is an issue and they're trying to do this to deal with it. We don't like that, but we still believe that overpopulation's an issue. or
Like,
it's it's overpopulation is an issue, but we have some idea about what we should be doing instead. And I'd really like to hear what they think we should be doing instead, because there's going to be a lot of fucking problems with a lot of it, I imagine.
like, hey, do you know, like, I, one of the things I will truly never get, and I think this episode is probably going to be titled "That Weird Politics and Conspiracy Theory One," or something stupid along those lines. Um,
Yeah.
to close the episode, like, I will never really understand this when people have serious conversations and they say things that completely lose everything. Like, I hear it, but I'll be like, oh yeah, yeah, well, um, like the Labour Party's full of anti-Semites, and like we really need a proper leader, like Boris Johnson. I'm like, what? Like, you had me in the first half, okay? Like, that was already fairly outlandish, and now you've just jumped the shark.
Yeah.
Like, and like, see, he wasn't perfect, but nobody is. Great, great. So I have to take you seriously. Oh, but like, but look at how, like, COVID was treated, and like how look at how the rules didn't apply, to everybody else, but it applied to certain people. You just praised Boris Johnson a minute ago.
Hmm.
Like, these people, like, it's hard for me to say this, okay, because again, again, like, as I said earlier, I kind of just let them live, because if everyone has problems, right? Like, at the core of it, they're probably good people, but they get caught up in certain things, right? And you got to do your best to support them through it. But at what point do you just start smacking the shit out of them, Joe? like,
It's it is literally why I really want to get into a job that somehow makes a difference. I think because more than anything else, it's either that I'm going to be trying to work with people to educate them or have them understand these sorts of things in a way that in a way that is genuine, that could actually make a difference, which I know undoubtedly is tiny within the larger scale. There's a huge problem with scale. I won't go into it too much about about where you work and the effect it has and the problems that essentially there's no kind of scale which really gets the job done. You need people working at every fucking scale constantly to like actually make a difference sometimes. But there is this situation. There are times where I'm like, okay, do I either try to actually engage with people on this in a way, and obviously for that I have to be a great person in a way, like, and this I actually would argue is being a great person, like, being able to be fully understanding, being able to emotionally take these hits of stupidity coming at you and be like, okay, I understand what you're saying, I disagree with you, and I think that you're misunderstanding these things, and doing it in a way that's polite and is able to get across to people and isn't going to like cause them to run away from you, and doing it in an environment in which you can actively like in which it actually will have an effect. Most people, if you talk to them about something, it's actually quite easy to change people's minds on a like not change them completely, but there are things that you can change about someone by just having a good interaction with them and being on the other side. Like, just because they no longer see that, because in their eyes you are an idiot who doesn't understand and or actively malicious or whatever, and in fact you're not, right? And that causes issue with them, and they can't like cognitively make sense of it. Sometimes that means that they change their mind. Sometimes it just means they think you're one of the good ones. Which,
Yeah.
when have we ever heard that
Well,
phrase before? Yeah, exactly. I've never had that use. I've had that use for me actually with veganism and stuff like that. But like the problem, but then the other side of things is, or I could probably just get involved with like climate science and not pay attention to any of these people and try to do stuff in the background. Like there's a part of me that's like, I want to do something, but I'm either going to have to actively engage with it or just try to deal with problems with no one being there to like interact with me. And the problem is that you need people to do both, and I can't decide which one I should be doing. Both is in
I think I
which
know what
one
you
I would
should
be
do, Joe.
better at. Go on.
You need to convince people of your methods and how, or not even of your methods, of the right methods. You need to be someone who can help steer society in a better path. You need to be someone who can be vocal and can help, get rid of disinformation, misinformation, and figure out, just help people figure out that they're on the wrong path and get them right on the good path. So you should become a mixed martial arts fighter.
Oh, of course, yeah, and I'll get a
Hey,
huge
just kill
following.
our people, Joe. That's it, man. That's it. Like,
I
on a
I should
serious
become
note.
a pop star, or a sports star, or a porn star, or a bunch of other different stars, or
All
get
of the
really
above.
good in gaming. In fact, all of these things, I should do all of them so that I have a huge online presence, and then say things that are reasonable, and then and then maybe they won't just leave me for the person that's saying something more sensationalist. Who knows? I
We
don't know
never
what's
landed on the moon. It was all a lie. And that's your first tweet.
I have to bring in. Well, that's the thing as well, is that I'd have to bring in like a bunch of people who won't agree with me, because otherwise it makes almost no difference to a certain
I
extent.
kind of wish, I kind of hope that you like build a random online presence, massive, huge, and like the first thing you do on social media is like a picture of you and Elon Musk just shaking hands.
Oh God.
Or you just be like, hey, this Donnie Trump guy.
Like, we talked about before about like about talking to people on the who we disagree with and so on. There's a part of me that would love to talk to Elon Musk, not because I agree with him about almost anything, but specifically just because, like, in private, it would be hilarious to me to have a conversation just so I can understand what his ideas are, like, and as much as it almost would probably pain me to do it at a certain level. But that's why I say in private, because I wouldn't want it to be public. I just want to have I just want to be able to talk. If I could have a conversation with everyone I disagreed with, which would be an insane number of people, and in many cases about completely pointless things that aren't actually very useful. There's a part of me that would love to do it if I had all the time in the world. If I had like infinite time, that would be something that would be. For some reason, that's like something that is worthy of ambition for me. I don't know why it really shouldn't be, because it's so stupid and ridiculous. It's a problem that I definitely have of being ambitious about very idealistic things. But I can't. But I just to imagine the amount of work I would have to do as a human being to have those conversations and not turn into a wreck. Like
That's exactly why you can't do it. So it's not possible. It's straight up isn't possible.
I definitely think there's self-betterment of things you can do, but which I do try to do. I think me and you have gotten better as people through each other as a result of discussing things. Like it's a big thing.
When it comes to like discussing like changing of people's minds on a mass level, yeah, but you're a politician at that point. So
yeah, I guess the big thing is try to talk and convince the people who are politicians more than anything else. Then
who knows?
who knows?
We've been going for a while. We have been going for a while.
We have been going for a while. It's be edited down maybe, but
I think once I like cut out all the like the silences, it'll probably be like an hour 20. We've actually been talking for a lot of it, but yeah,
yeah.
guys, it's been Silly Wells. I have nothing else to add.
It probably won't have like as fully political episode, I imagine.
No, never.
Like
Probably
ever
never
again.
That being said, I've now
no, we will.
put in like Silly Wells presents COVID-19. Silly Wells presents conspiracy theories.
Yeah,
as future episodes. So
yeah, we'll have present episodes. Hopefully, we'll never have a journal episode that's like this. So if this is like off-putting,
depends on who wins the election.
Oh boy, yeah. If this is off-putting, like don't like this is us in this moment doing this because this is what we're doing. Like it's not like that. It's not like that. This is what the podcast
if
is.
It's off-putting, then you are simply a woke lefty, okay? And you're part of the radical Marxist left, and you need to understand that this is the future, and the future is strong, stable, and British. So we're gonna take 2 steps to the rear and get out of here, snowflake.
Bye,
See ya.
See you, postmodern Marxist. Oh my god.